The story began with Superman at his most vulnerable, discovered broken and defeated in the icy wastelands of Antarctica. The image was a stark contrast to the invincible god the world knew him to be. A brutal battle had left him on the very edge of death, a fragile figure with ragged breath and bloodied face. Through the biting blizzard, a figure emerged from the whiteout. It was Krypto, his loyal superdog. Oblivious to the severity of the situation, Krypto joyfully leaped onto his master, offering a moment of pure, unconditional love. With the last of his strength, Superman begged his companion to take him home. The ice then gave way to reveal the magnificent Fortress of Solitude, a crystalline sanctuary marked with the unmistakable S shield. Inside the high-tech, sacred space, Superman's robots immediately rushed to his aid, their cold, mechanical movements a sharp contrast to the flickering humanity left in him. Although Superman thanked them, the robots flatly informed him that they lacked consciousness and that their only function was to serve, rendering his gratitude meaningless. It was a subtle reminder of the profound loneliness that defined the last son of Krypton. To aid his recovery, the robots played a holographic recording from his birth parents, Jor-El and Lara. In the message, they explained their desperate act of sending him from the dying planet Krypton to save his life, entrusting all their hopes to him. However, the recording cut off abruptly, as only half of the message had survived the perilous journey to Earth. The robots diagnosed Superman with 14 broken bones and severe internal damage. They determined he needed a massive amount of solar radiation to heal, so they moved him directly into the sunlight to recharge his extraordinary powers. As Superman recuperated, we are introduced to Angela Spica, also known as the Engineer, a super being working for Lex Luthor. She had been tracking Superman in Antarctica, but radioed her employer to report that she had lost his signal. Though Luthor remained unseen, his presence loomed like a shadow, foreshadowing the complex schemes and dangers to come. Despite having recovered only 85% of his strength, Superman ignored his robot's warnings and insisted on returning to action, his resolve driven by a sense of duty that outweighed his own safety. Just as he prepared to leave, a mysterious weapon called the Hammer of Borovia struck, slamming him to the ground. The attack's precision was terrifying, suggesting the enemy anticipated his every move. At that critical moment, a civilian named Malik Ali, who had once shared a meal with Superman, rushed to help him up. From afar, Luthor instantly detected the civilian's presence, revealing the terrifying extent of his surveillance network. Meanwhile, Angela had tracked Superman to the Fortress of Solitude, catching a glimpse of him just before he vanished. From the comfort of his office, Luthor watched everything on a network of cameras, showcasing his masterful ability to manipulate events. The Hammer of Borovia then declared that it would be Superman's final battle, and the witnessing crowd began to mock the fallen hero. The plot soon thickened when it was revealed that the Hammer was not a person but an incredibly powerful android named Ultraman, disguised to deceive the public. Luthor explained that Ultraman had spent decades meticulously studying Superman's every move. The story then shifted back to Metropolis, where Clark Kent returned to his job as a journalist. A warm call from his adoptive parents, reminding him of their love, highlighted the constant struggle he faced balancing his two lives. The tension was briefly lifted by the arrival of Lois Lane, whose playful teasing and cheerful demeanor provided a sharp contrast to the gravity of the unfolding events. Public opinion began to turn against the once beloved hero, fueled by news reports in which the president of the fictional nation of Borovia publicly denied any connection to the Hammer. At Luthor Corp headquarters, Lex Luthor gathered a group of elite business leaders and introduced them to Ultraman and an army of raptors, super beings created to eliminate extraterrestrial threats. Luthor argued that Superman was a potential threat and tried to persuade them to invest in his metahuman project. The business leaders, however, pushed back, pointing out that Superman had recently prevented a war and was still held in high regard. Unfazed, Luthor insisted on the danger Superman posed, though he admitted he had no concrete proof. The investors subsequently refused to back any extreme measures. After 3 months without seeing each other, Lois and Clark finally had a night to themselves. They discussed the recent trouble with the Hammer of Borovia, and Superman asked Lois to interview him, to which she agreed. The interview began with Lois asking directly about the pressure he was under, noting that even the Secretary of Defense had launched an investigation into his actions in Borovia. Superman explained that his intervention in the neighboring nation of Jarhanpur was driven by the belief that the Boravian government was hiding something sinister and that countless lives were at stake. He admitted he had not received permission to enter their airspace, having acted on his own according to what he felt was right. Lois shared that she had been facing intense online backlash, but Superman dismissed it, claiming he did not have time for social media. He then confided in her about his origins on the doomed planet Krypton, explaining that his parents had sent him to Earth not just to save him, but to give him a chance to serve humanity. When Lois admitted that much of the public suspected he had a darker agenda, Clark became genuinely angry. Frustrated, Lois confessed that she had anticipated the interview would not go well and that relationships had never been her strong suit. At this, Clark left without a word, leaving Lois alone with her thoughts and highlighting his struggle to reconcile his heritage with his role as Earth's protector. Meanwhile, Luthor and his team arrived at the Fortress of Solitude. Shockingly, Luthor entered the sanctuary, leaving Angela baffled, as it should have only opened to Superman's DNA. His team of superpowered soldiers eliminated the Guardian robots, while a frantic Krypto was brushed aside. Luthor's true goal was to find incriminating evidence against Superman. Simultaneously in Metropolis, his henchman, Otis, released a small creature from a box, a distraction intended to keep Superman occupied while they extracted data from the fortress. Back at the fortress, Angela finally succeeded in restoring the rest of the damaged message from Superman's parents. The creature Otis released in Metropolis rapidly grew into a gigantic monster. Superman flew in to save a dog from being crushed just as the Justice Gang, Hawkgirl, Green Lantern, and Mr. Terrific arrived. Together, they defeated the monster, with Superman intervening at the last second to ensure the safety of the crowd below. Yet, there was no applause. The media had sown too much doubt, and a toxic narrative painting Superman as a menace had taken hold. His public image continued to plummet. Then, a shocking revelation emerged. The fully restored recording from Superman's parents, analyzed by top linguists, contained a terrifying translation. While they expressed their love, they also described humans as weak-minded and commanded him, as the last descendant of Krypton, to eliminate those who could not serve him and to rule through domination. This message was a fatal blow. Luthor seized the moment, publicly declaring that Superman was plotting to subjugate humanity and vowing that he would never let it happen. A heartbroken Superman wandered the streets, absorbing the public's insults. He retreated to a room where he was confronted by Green Lantern, who, having heard the recording, was convinced Superman was a threat. Superman insisted he had never heard that part of the message, explaining that it had been damaged. Mr. Terrific then entered, arguing that a forensic lab would never have verified the recording's authenticity if it were a fake. Hearing this, Superman decided to return to the fortress, believing it was the only place to find the truth. As world leaders debated the threat, the president of Boravia appeared on TV, claiming Superman had interfered in Jarimpur not to protect people, but to enslave them. Afterwards, the president walked through a secret portal to meet with Luthor, ecstatic that their plan to use a fake recording had worked. Luthor coldly corrected him, revealing that the recording was, in fact, entirely real. When Superman arrived at his fortress, he found it destroyed. A loyal robot confessed it had failed to defend the sanctuary before powering down in his arms. Devastated, Superman then had a worse realization. Krypto was gone. Determined to find his friend, he flew to Luthor Corp to confront Lex Luthor. Luthor feigned ignorance, and as they argued, his girlfriend, Eve Teschmacher, secretly live-streamed their conversation. This was followed by news channels broadcasting clips of Peacemaker mercilessly criticizing Superman. Completely broken, Superman went to Lois Lane's apartment. Surprised, she offered him hot chocolate as he finally opened up, explaining that his ship's damage was why he had only heard the first half of his parents' message. Lois reassured him that she believed him, but also pointed out his trusting nature as a weakness. Superman softly whispered that he loved her before they parted ways. The next day, Superman surrendered to Luthor's soldiers and was savagely beaten. He was then taken to a secret desert base and escorted by the Raptors into a pocket universe, a separate dimension created by Luthor. There, he was imprisoned in a secret facility that held Luthor's enemies, from political dissidents to his own ex-girlfriends. Superman was thrown into a cell with Rex Mason, Metamorpho, a shapeshifter whom Luthor ordered to turn his hand into kryptonite. With his own son held captive, Rex had no choice but to obey. At the Daily Planet, Lois Lane's investigation revealed that Luthor had been fueling the Boravian War by selling them weapons at absurdly low prices. Just then, her colleague Jimmy Olsen arrived with a tip from a trusted source. Superman was being held in a pocket universe. Inside that dimension, Luthor appeared before Superman and revealed a cruel truth. They had Krypto, and the dog would be experimented on and made to suffer before being killed. Meanwhile, Jimmy met with his source, Eve Teschmacher. She admitted she didn't know Luthor's full plan, but promised to investigate further if Jimmy agreed to a date. A traumatized Eve then confessed that Luthor had tortured a dog and boasted about imprisoning all his ex-girlfriends. In the Pocket Universe, a weakened Superman tried to reason with Rex, promising to rescue his son if he removed the kryptonite. Agitated, Rex refused, pushing the kryptonite closer. Lois, determined to rescue Superman, went to the Justice Gang. Mr. Terrific pinpointed Superman's location using nanosensors he had previously placed in his bloodstream. But Green Lantern and Hawkgirl hesitated to join the mission. Furious, Lois left with a loyal Mr. Terrific at her side. At the prison, President Vasile and Luthor brought in Malik Ali to use as leverage against Superman. When Superman refused to reveal his allies, they shot Malik in the head in front of him. As this happened, Mr. Terrific and Lois reached the secret base. Terrific neutralized the guards and began decoding the entry sequence to the Pocket Universe, explaining to Lois that uncontrolled entry could create a black hole. Inside the prison, a devastated Rex begged Superman for help. Superman agreed and told Vasile he needed yellow sun radiation to regain his strength. Just as Mr. Terrific and Lois opened the portal, they found their path blocked by a river of antiprotons. Once recharged, Superman rescued Rex's son, and together with Krypto, they attempted to escape. They were ambushed and pushed towards the antiproton river, but managed to break free. Mr. Terrific pulled them through the portal just before it closed forever. Eve contacted Jimmy, claiming she had the information to defeat Luthor, but was captured before she could send it. The files she transmitted were only selfies. Hidden within these photos, however, were Luthor's top-secret data files, which Jimmy sent to Lois. Meanwhile, Luthor prepared to reopen the portal, fully aware it could cause a global catastrophe. The next day, Jonathan Kent reassured his son that parents do not define their children's destinies. As news of the war in Boravia escalated, Superman prepared to intervene, but was stopped by Mr. Terrific, who insisted the spatial fissure they created must be dealt with first. Jimmy and Lois reported to their editor, Perry White, that Luthor had orchestrated the entire war to seize territory and eliminate Superman. When Luthor Corp refused to help close the fissure, the team was forced to physically drag the portal-generating ship out of the building. Suddenly, Ultraman appeared and dragged Superman to a football stadium to fight. The engineer joined, and under Luthor's orders, began to fill Superman's lungs with air. As Superman neared death, his body was infested with nanites. He flew beyond the atmosphere and plummeted back to Earth, the impact allowing him to expel the nanites and survive. Ultraman's mask fell off, revealing him to be a clone of Superman, created from his DNA. Luthor ordered the clone to attack, intent on proving that intelligence triumphs over strength. As a child prayed for salvation from the war, Superman informed Luthor that his plans would fail because he had summoned the Justice Gang, who arrived with Rex and his son to stop the war. Perry White prepared to publish the full story. Superman, even while being beaten, smiled, declaring that wisdom overcomes strength. He had Krypto collect Luthor's hidden surveillance cameras before defeating the Raptors and Ultraman, sending the clone into a black hole. He and Mr. Terrific then went to Luthor Corp to close the fissure. There, Superman declared his own humanity, his capacity for love, fear, and mistakes. Just then, Krypto attacked Luthor. With the fissure finally closed, the news broke, exposing Luthor's conspiracy. The world that had turned on Superman now owed him an apology. Luthor was arrested, and his prisoners were freed. Eve reunited with Jimmy, and Lois met with Superman for an interview, where she finally confessed her love for him. Superman returned to a fully repaired fortress of solitude. Sometime later, his cousin, Supergirl, Kara Zor-El, arrived, revealing herself to be Krypto's true owner, who enjoyed partying on planets with red suns. The story concluded with Superman at peace, watching a recording of his adoptive parents. His journey was a constant cycle of trial, sacrifice, and redemption, a reminder that even the greatest heroes face adversity, and it is in overcoming it that they become immortal.